Rose, a 20-year-old young woman, walked through the dusty streets of a small town in the United States. Her eyes reflected both determination and desperation. She tightly held a handful of crumpled resumes, each one telling the story of her basic education and brief cleaning experience. The midday sun shone brightly but not as intensely as Rose's urgent need to find a job. Her home was a small house on the outskirts of town where her mother, Mrs. Clare, lived. Her days were an ENT battle against terminal cancer. With each passing day, the shadow of the illness grew more oppressive, and the need to support her mother became more pressing. "Rose, my dear, you'll make it," Mrs. Clare often said, her voice weak but filled with love. "You are strong, just like your father was. He would be so proud." Rose remembered those words as she entered yet another establishment, a small corner cafe. "Good afternoon," she said with a nervous smile. "I'm looking for a job. Here's my resume." The manager, a middle-aged man with a tired look, took the paper with little interest. "Experience only in cleaning, huh?" he muttered, his eyes quickly scanning the lines. "I'm sorry, we're looking for someone with more skills." Rose nodded, hiding the frustration and sadness that were starting to build within her. "Thank you anyway," she replied, leaving the cafe with her head down. This scene repeated itself several times in stores, restaurants, and offices. The rejections were always polite but no less painful. With each no, the weight on Rose's shoulders grew heavier. After another exhausting day filled with closed doors and disdainful looks, Rose returned to her home, a modest house that bore the marks of time and love. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, but the beauty of the evening barely touched Rose's heavy heart. Each step toward her home was a reminder of the weight of her responsibilities and unmet expectations. Upon opening the door, a sweet and welcoming aroma filled her senses. It was the smell of freshly baked cake, a fragrance that always brought back happier childhood memories. Mrs. Clare, her mother, was in the kitchen, a scarf covering her now thinning hair due to chemotherapy. Despite the paleness and evident fatigue on her face, her eyes shone with love and determination. "Ah, my daughter, you're back. Look at what I prepared," Mrs. Clare said with a fragile smile, pointing to a chocolate cake on the table. "You know, I still remember your favorite recipe." Rose, trying to hide the frustration of the day, forced a smile and approached to hug her mother. "Mom, you shouldn't have gone through so much trouble," she said, her voice choked with emotion. Mrs. Clare laughed gently, a sound that seemed to carry both love and sadness. "And what else would I do, dear? Sit around all day? No, I'd rather do something for you, something that brings you a little joy." They sat together at the table, each with a slice of cake. Rose watched her mother, noticing how she concealed the pain with each movement. "Mom, how are you really feeling?" Rose asked, her concern showing. Mrs. Clare took Rose's hand, gently squeezing it. "I'm fine, my dear. With you here, how could I not be?" She paused, looking at Rose with intensity. "And you, how was the job search today?" Rose sighed, lowering her eyes to the cake. "It wasn't as I had hoped, Mom, but tomorrow is a new day, and I'll try again. I won't give up, for you." Mrs. Clare smiled, a smile that carried both pride and love. "I know you can do it, Rose. You've always been strong and resilient. Your strength is what keeps me fighting too." They continued to talk, eating the cake and sharing not only the sweet treat but also the unwavering love that bound them together. That night, despite the difficulties and uncertainties, the house was filled with human warmth, a safe refuge against the storms of life. 2 months had passed since those sweet moments shared around a chocolate cake, and the colors of Rose's life had faded into shades of gray. Winter brought with it more than just the cold, it brought the final farewell of Mrs. Clare. The house, once filled with the aroma of cakes and maternal warmth, was now immersed in deafening silence. Sitting alone in the kitchen, where every corner seemed to echo with the laughter and conversations of the past, Rose held a cup of coffee, her gaze lost in emptiness. The walls, witnesses to so many years of love and struggle, now seemed to close in on her. It was during the night, dear, the doctor's voice still resonated in her mind. She passed peacefully. But words of comfort were like leaves in the wind in the face of the storm brewing within Rose. She got up, walking slowly to her mother's room. Every step was a reminder of the reality she now faced, alone, without her mother, without a job, and with the threat of eviction knocking at the door. Mrs. Clare's retirement income, which barely covered the expenses, had extinguished with her departure. The room was still as Mrs. Clare had left it, with her clothes neatly arranged and photographs scattered on the shelves. Rose picked up one of the photos, an image of her mother in happier days, and tears began to flow freely. "Mom, what am I going to do now?" she whispered to the photo, her voice choked with pain. "You're strong, Rose, stronger than you think." Mrs. Clare's words, spoken so many times, now seemed like a distant echo, a thin thread of hope amidst despair. In the days that followed, Rose faced the reality of her situation with bitter determination. She scoured the classifieds, looking for any job that could keep a roof over her head. But the doors seemed even more closed now, each no an additional blow to her already wounded heart. The nights were the hardest. The house, empty of laughter and maternal advice, felt like a labyrinth of memories and shadows. Rose curled up under the covers in her room, tears wetting the pillow, while the winter wind howled outside, as if mourning along with her. Despite the grief and despair, a part of Rose refused to give up. She remembered her mother's words, her unconditional love, and knew that somehow, she needed to move forward. Mrs. Clare had given her the strength to fight, and even in the deepest darkness, that strength still burned like a faint flame, guiding her through grief and uncertainty. Now, tell me, here in the comments, what would you do in Rose's place? How would you deal with the everyday difficulties without your mother's advice? Would you try to reach out to a relative to provide some help until she can find a job? Will she be able to bounce back, or will she be evicted from her home 1 month after her mother's death? Rose, her eyes marked by the relentless struggle against adversity, finally caught a break in her daily battle. She had been hired as a cleaner in a local accounting office, a temporary job, but a lifeline in the stormy sea of her financial worries. However, even as she scrubbed floors and cleaned windows, the reality of her financial situation continued to weigh on her like a dark cloud. The salary, though welcome, was a drop in the ocean of overdue rent that threatened to engulf her at any moment. It was a cold Thursday morning, and Rose was kneeling vigorously, scrubbing a stubborn stain on the hallway floor. Her hair was hastily tied in a bun, with small strands escaping, framing her focused face. "I need to do this quickly," she thought. "If I can finish here, I can go job hunting in the afternoon." The office phone rang, a sound that usually got lost in the buzz of daily activities, but this time, the secretary, Mrs. Henderson, an older woman with gold-rimmed glasses, appeared in the hallway. "Rose, it's for you," she called out, a look of surprise in her eyes. Rose, confused, wiped her hands on her apron and hurried to the phone. "Hello," she said, a bit hesitant. "Hello, is this Rose? This is Emily Johnson from the Grand View Hotel. We received your application for the kitchen assistant position. We would like to invite you for an interview tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. Can you make it?" Rose felt her heart race. An interview at the Grand View Hotel, one of the most renowned places in town. "Yes, of course, I'll be there." "Thank you so much for the opportunity," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady despite the excitement bubbling within her. Hanging up the phone, Rose stood still for a moment, allowing herself to absorb the news. It was a chance, an opportunity that could change everything. Mrs. Henderson, watching from afar, smiled. "Good luck, dear. You deserve this." Rose left the office, her number on her resumes, as she couldn't keep the phone there, and Mrs. Henderson agreed to help her with that. Returning to her work, Rose felt a new energy flowing through her veins. She still had a long way to go, but that phone call had ignited a spark of hope in her heart. As she scrubbed the floor, she began to mentally plan what she would wear, how she would present herself, the words she would say. That moment was a glimpse of light at the end of a very long and dark tunnel, and she was determined to reach it. The next morning, Rose woke up before the sun rose, overcome by a mix of nervousness and excitement. The Grand View Hotel, a symbol of elegance and luxury in the city, was the setting for her job interview, a place she had never imagined working. Wearing her most formal outfit, although somewhat worn from time and use, she looked at herself in the cracked mirror of her small bathroom. "You can do this," she told herself, trying to infuse confidence into her reflection. She arrived at the hotel with time to spare, her heart pounding as she walked through the revolving glass doors. The lobby was a spectacle of opulence, with sparkling chandeliers, polished marble, and lush floral arrangements. The people around, dressed in fine attire and exuding an air of sophistication, seemed to inhabit a world different from hers. Rose felt the eyes turn towards her, barely concealed whispers and looks of disdain cut like blades. An elegantly dressed lady looked her up and down and remarked to her companion, "What are people like her doing here? This place is losing its standards." The pain of those words hit Rose like a punch in the stomach. She felt her cheeks flush, and for a moment, she wanted to run out, to escape those judgmental and humiliating looks. But then she remembered why she was there. "I'm here for a chance, an opportunity," she thought. "I won't let them push me away." She approached the reception, trying to maintain her composure. "Hello, my name is Rose. I'm here for the interview for the kitchen assistant position." The receptionist, a young man with a polished smile, looked at her surprised, but quickly regained his professional composure. Yes, of course. Please wait a moment. I'll inform them that you've arrived." Rose sat in one of the luxurious lobby armchairs, her hands nervously clasped in her lap. She tried to focus on her breathing, ignoring the stares and whispers. "I deserve to be here as much as anyone," she convinced herself, her determination strengthening despite the discomfort. Those moments of waiting seemed like an eternity, each second a test of her resilience and self-esteem. But Rose held her head high, reminding herself of all the difficulties she had already overcome. She was there to fight for a chance, and it wouldn't be prejudice or others' judgment that would make her give up. While Rose waited, trying to shield herself from the malicious looks and whispers in the elegant lobby of the Grand View Hotel, a disturbing scene unfolded. Pamela, a middle-aged guest with an aura exuding confidence and compassion, observed the situation from a distance. Impeccably dressed, she approached Rose, her face expressing disapproval of the other guest's behavior. "It's unbelievable how cruel people can be," Pamela said, sitting next to Rose. "Don't pay them any mind. You have as much right to be here as anyone." Rose, surprised and a bit uncomfortable with the attention, smiled timidly. "Thank you, but I'm used to it. I'm just here for a job interview." "That only increases my respect for you," replied Pamela, her tone filled with sincerity. Maintaining composure in an environment like this isn't easy. Before Rose could respond, Lila, the hotel manager, appeared. She was an elegant woman with a posture that conveyed efficiency and authority. Upon seeing Rose, her initial appraising gaze quickly turned into surprise and then respect. "You must be Rose," Lila said, extending her hand. "I'm Lila, the manager. Come, let's go to my office." Rose stood up, thanking Pamela with a nod before following Lila. As they walked, Lila looked at Rose with a mix of curiosity and admiration. "You know, I was about to call you, and I ended up watching from afar how you handled a very difficult situation with a lot of dignity. That says a lot about you. Not just anyone can endure malicious glances and comments." Rose felt her cheeks flush. I need this job," she admitted, her voice low but firm. Lila nodded, opening the door to her office. "That sincerity and resilience are qualities we value here at the Grand View. Please, have a seat, Rose. Let's talk more about you and what you can bring to our team." As she sat down, Rose felt a wave of relief mixed with hope. This interview was not just a job opportunity, it was a recognition of her strength and determination, a moment that could mark the beginning of a new phase in her life. After a sincere and emotional interview, Rose left Lila's office with an almost surreal sense of triumph. She had been hired as a kitchen assistant at the Grand View Hotel, a turn of events she could hardly believe. But that wasn't the only good news. Impressed by Rose's determination, Lila also offered her the opportunity to participate in a professional development program sponsored by the hotel. "Rose, we see potential in you," Lila said, her tone serious but encouraging. "In addition to your work in the kitchen, we want to offer you culinary and hospitality courses. We believe in investing in our employees." Rose, still stunned by her rapid change of fortune, could only mumble a thank you very much as she left Lila's office. She felt like she was floating, each step taking her closer to a future she had never dared to dream of. However, the hotel required long hours because, in addition to her job, she would be taking cooking and hospitality courses, and the hotel was far from her home. It was not convenient for her to commute daily, and she had no resources to rent a room closer to the hotel, as it was more expensive due to its prime location. Therefore, she found a temporary but humble solution. The hotel's staff locker room became her improvised refuge. Among the benches and cabinets, Rose set up a small corner with a thin mattress and an old blanket she had brought from home. The nights in the locker room were lonely and uncomfortable. Rose curled up under the blanket, trying to ignore the hardness of the floor beneath her. Amidst the darkness, the sounds of the kitchen being cleaned and closed echoed through the walls. But even on those difficult nights, Rose clung to the spark of hope that the new opportunity had ignited in her heart. During the day, she worked vigorously in the kitchen, absorbing all the knowledge and skills she could. Every task was performed with dedication that did not go unnoticed. The more experienced chefs began to notice her passion and dedication, offering advice and teachings. In the classes of the professional development program, Rose excelled. She noted every detail, every technique taught, knowing that every small learning was a step on the ladder to a better future. One day, all of this will change, she told herself, looking at the stars through the small locker room window on the silent nights. Rose's story at the Grand View Hotel was more than just a job. It was a journey of transformation and resilience, a testament that even in the most adverse circumstances, willpower and determination can open paths to new possibilities and a better future. Rose's life at the Grand View Hotel was a mosaic of hard work and constant learning, with her nights spent in the locker room providing little comfort. However, an unexpected turn of events was about to occur, one that would significantly change her situation. It was a cold pre-dawn, and Rose, wrapped in her blanket, was sound asleep on the locker room floor when the door opened silently. Simon, the hotel owner, a middle-aged man with an imposing yet gentle presence, entered for a surprise inspection. Upon finding Rose asleep there, his face showed surprise and concern. "Rose," he called out, his voice low. Rose woke up startled, embarrassed, and frightened to see Simon standing there. "Mr. Simon, I'm sorry. I had nowhere else to go. My home is too far, and it wouldn't be possible for me to commute daily and keep up with work and classes," she stammered, struggling to get up. Simon raised his hand, signaling for her not to worry. No, Rose, you don't need to apologize. I just didn't know about your situation. Why didn't you tell me?" Rose looked down, her hands twisting the blanket. "I didn't want to bother anyone. I'm just grateful for the job." Simon sighed, feeling a mixture of admiration and concern. "You're a dedicated and valuable worker for us. We can't have one of our employees living like this. I'll arrange a room for you at the hotel." Simon's words hit Rose like a ray of light in the darkness. "You would do that for me?" she asked, her eyes welling up with tears of gratitude. "Of course," Simon replied with a warm smile. "It's the least we can do." From that day on, Rose's life at the hotel took a new turn. With a room to call her own, she found renewed vigor and determination. She removed her mother's belongings from the old house and stored them in a storage unit. Her dedication and skill in the kitchen began to gain recognition, and she quickly became a respected and admired presence not only among her colleagues, but also among the guests. Even Christian, Simon's son, known for his spoiled and demanding attitude, began to look at Rose in a new light. "You really have talent," Rose," he told her one day after tasting a dish she had prepared. "My father was right to give you this chance." Rose smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and belonging. Christian's words were more than just a compliment. They were a sign that she had truly found her place at the Grand View Hotel. She knew she still had a long way to go, but now, with a secure home and the respect of her colleagues, Rose felt she could face any challenge that came her way. As Rose settled into her new life at the Grand View Hotel, a surprising revelation was about to unfold, one that would unexpectedly intertwine her past and present. Simon trusted Rose a lot, and one day, he asked her to clean his office. Since Rose had experience in the area, she went, and while cleaning Simon's office, she found an old wooden box hidden in a corner of the bookshelf. Driven by curiosity, Rose opened it gently, and her heart almost stopped when she saw the contents. It was a collection of old letters and photographs, many of them depicting her mother, Mrs. CLA, in her youth. Rose began to read the letters, each word revealing an untold love story, a secret passion between Simon and Mrs. CLA. "My dearest Claire," began one of the letters, written with elegant handwriting, "every day away from you feels like a year in shadows. I hold on to hope that our paths will cross again." Tears began to stream down Rose's face as she absorbed every word, every feeling expressed in those lines. She remembered how Simon had always been kind to her, but she had never imagined the deep connection he had with Mrs. CLA. Later that day, Rose found Simon in the hotel's garden. "Mr. Simon," she began, holding the letters she found, "I didn't know about you and my mother." Simon looked at her, a mixture of surprise and resignation in his eyes. "Rose, I always loved your mother," he confessed, his voice choked with emotion. "But life took us on different paths. I always wanted to take care of her, of both of you. Why didn't you ever tell me?" Rose asked, still trying to comprehend this discovery. Simon sighed, looking at the horizon. "I respected Claire's choice. She chose a different path, and I didn't want to complicate her life. But I never stopped caring, wanting to help. Rose, I evaluate all my employees, and when I saw your name, I told Lila to hire you. I did some research and found out that your mother passed away. I was very sad because I loved your mother very much, but I never wanted to tell you about it. I didn't know how you would react." Rose looked at Simon, realizing in him not only the hotel owner, but a man who carried in his heart a deep and silent love for her mother. This understanding brought a new dimension to their relationship, transforming professional respect into a deeper emotional bond. Rose felt a wave of gratitude for Simon, not only for everything he had done for her, but also for loving Mrs. CLA in his own way. The revelation of Simon's secret love for her mother profoundly transformed the way Rose saw the world around her, especially her relationship with Simon. In the whirlwind of emotions that accompanied her discovery of the letters and photographs, she found a new understanding and a newfound respect for Simon, which gradually turned into a kind of paternal affection. One day, as the sun set, painting the sky orange and purple, Rose went to Simon's office for a conversation she knew was inevitable. She gently knocked on the door, and upon entering, she saw Simon gazing thoughtfully out of the window. "Mr. Simon," Rose began hesitantly, "I've been thinking a lot about everything I've discovered about you and my mother." Simon turned, looking at Rose with an expression of kindness and vulnerability. "Rose, I hope this hasn't caused you more pain." Rose shook her head, a shy smile forming on her lips. "No, actually, it has given me a new perspective. I see now how much you cared and still care, and I'm grateful for that." There was a pause, a moment of silence filled with emotion. "Rose," Simon finally said, "I always wanted what was best for your mother, and now for you. If there's anything I can do to make your life easier." Rose interrupted him, holding Simon's hands in hers. "You've already done so much. I'll never forget that. But I need to do this my way. I want to keep working, learning. That's what my mother would have wanted." Simon nodded, a glint of pride in his eyes. "Your mother would have been very proud, and so am I, Rose. You're an incredibly strong and determined woman." Rose smiled, feeling a wave of strength and determination. I will carry on, keep working hard, not just for myself, but in honor of my mother's memory and in gratitude to you." In that moment, a new relationship solidified between them, one based on mutual respect and a deeper understanding. Rose continued her work at the Grand View Hotel with renewed vigor and purpose, each day bringing new challenges but also new opportunities to grow and honor the legacy of love and sacrifice that Simon and her mother had left for her. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.